Hello, I am Moodita, and welcome back to Satisfactory. In the last video, I got my teleportation tower set up. I can now quickly jump from one side of the map to the other. I love it. I then added production of 1500 rubber and 1200 plastic over on the west coast. And lastly, I finished the video with a large tower in the rocky desert making 80 superposition oscillators per minute. The next project I want to tackle is automating power shards so that I never have to pick up another slug again. The tricky part about fully automating power shards is once you have too many, you can't actually sync them. They are used in two things that are both able to be sunk, however. The alien power matrix is actually the absolutely worst thing in the game to sync, as it gives you a tiny fraction of the sync points compared to the points of the parts that you put in. But I'm not going to be syncing them. They are going to be used in some alien power augmenters to produce even more power. The Ionized Fuel is what I'll use to sync the extra power shards once my inventory fills up. Which brings me back to the blue crater. Let's go over the plan real quick, and it'll probably give you a better idea of why I picked this location. Here's a snapshot of the spreadsheet. And again, because I'm using all four inputs and both outputs, it's a bit crowded and had to be shrunk down. But I can show you the first three floors a little bit cleaner. To make the alien power matrix, I need the excited photonic matter, SAM fluctuators, superposition oscillators, which I already have automated, and the power shards, which I'm also going to automate right here. My plan is to make 10 alien power matrix and then 35 power shards in total. 30 of them will go to the alien power matrix, and then 5 of them are just going to be for me. 5 per minute isn't a whole lot, but it is definitely going to add up, and eventually I'm going to have way too many. So the good old ionized fuel recipe takes rocket fuel and power shards. In the closest, kind of shortest factory here in the blue crater, I am making 150 packaged rocket fuel per minute, which means I'm just going to need to split off 40 because when you unpackage it, you get twice as much. And I will have to set up kind of an overflow system for that, because as soon as I use power shards in the future, then it's not going to have the power shards to make the ionized fuel because it's going to be refilling my inventory. But right now I'm sinking pretty much all of that rocket fuel anyways, so the majority will still be sinking in this factory, and then sometimes a little bit will be sinking in the new factory. So the great thing about this location is obviously the rocket fuel is close, although it is packaged like I mentioned, so if I needed to transport it, it would be really easy to do. But most of the other things are really pretty close to this area as well. This factory does require some dark matter crystals, but with the amount of dark matter residue byproduct, I'm going to be able to make way more than I need, which again is the goal for me. Eventually, they are going to come in handy. But to make all those dark matter crystals, I need a good amount of time crystals, which means I need a fair amount of diamonds. To make the diamonds, I'm actually going to use 2 of the recipes. Because I still have 2 pure nodes available down here, that 1200 crude oil gets turned into 120 time crystals, which is more than half, but in total, I need 202. To make the other 82 time crystals that I need, I'm going to be using the cloudy diamonds recipe, because there's a good amount of coal, and limestone is everywhere, so I'm sure I'll be able to find enough. I only need 600 iron ore and 125 copper. Those nodes are nearby. The only one that'll have to come from a little bit of a distance is the raw quartz. I need 585, so one normal node, not too bad. And then I also need 1200 SAM. It takes 1200 SAM just to make 50 SAM fluctuators. So that is why I picked this location. Because if we come right through here, we've got 2 pure nodes. I don't need a lot, but I will need 2 water extractors worth of water, so it'll be nice to be close to the water. And even though it will make transporting some of the things like the quartz, which is going to come from right over there. In that purple little forest there's some more quartz nodes. But I don't need to build it just right on top of the water. Even though this doesn't look like the nicest terrain to work with, it's still got a ton of open space and it'll be good enough. Let me get some foundations placed and we can go from there. It's still going to end up being a tower of some sort because I do just love to go vertical. But I'm going to try to make it at least a little bit different. So this very bottom floor is going to be really simple. I am just going to do the pure quartz crystal recipe down there. And I only need 4 refineries to do it. And then on this next floor is where I'm going to do the oil-based diamonds and turning them into time crystals. I'm going to do the rest of the diamonds and time crystals on another floor. I just went through my refinery blueprints until I found the layout and the number of the ones that I wanted. Sometimes I do the pipes elevated, other times I do them on the bottom. This time I want them on the bottom because that way they'll be the closest to the water. Oh, and of course, there's a bean. We'll start on this side. Give myself plenty of space, but I don't need too much. So let's go ahead and just place these here and another one here, and we'll change the recipe. This is getting turned into 455 quartz across 4 machines. Terrific. And now I know where I can place my water extractors. I'm just gonna run these down. Just do one more layer. And then this is the way I like to get them spaced out just the way I want. So I know that the junction is the quarter of the foundation mark over. That's where I want to go. Easy way to do it is just place it right on the corner and just nudge it over 2. And now I can place it and it'll be 4 meters spaced from the edge. And I think I should be able to just place 1. Get it all lined up. And if I hold control, that one should also be terrific. Just in the right spot. Both the refineries and coal generators are exactly half the width of one water extractor. So they pair up 2 to 1 really nicely. And now I can just place some pipes here. And now in horizontal to vertical, make this look a little bit better. And I believe, I'll have to double check here in a second. Not quite even with this foundation, but we're only going up 2 foundations, which is 8 meters. So in theory, I shouldn't need any pumps. And really we can make all of these Mark 1 pipes. Each one of these needs 81.25, 162.5. And then just one more splitter in the middle to split it all up. And there's my quartz done. I am actually making a tiny bit more than I need because with the numbers, that was just going to be the easiest way without dealing with a crazy decimal point. So I am going to end up placing a sink back here and we're going to do a little bit of load balancing. Probably just going to group it all going this way. And then I can do my load balancing the correct amount. I think I'm just going to use this side right here to bring everything up because this is also going to be the side that the iron node's here. The copper node is right there. The quartz is coming from over there. Coal is right around there. Some of the SAM is over there. So I think just having this side is probably going to be the one dedicated to everything going up or down. And so let's go ahead and just knock that out now. These are each putting out 113 and some change. And this right here will have my 455. Here is the diagram I came to split this all up. If I divide 455 by 5, I get 91. Now I just follow my diagram to place all of my mergers and splitters, and then I'll just multiply all the numbers by 5 to make sure I get the right belts. Let's just go down the main row. We start with a merger and then 6 splitters. And now let's switch to the mergers, and these we'll make sure we give ourselves 2 meters just so everything has enough space. 2 mergers there. Then we skip this one. This one is a splitter and we got to turn it sideways. And then we go back to a merger. And on the other side, 2 mergers. Skip this one and a merger. Now we just need to multiply all the numbers by 5. But here is my 455 that I can plug in. This is going to loop back 25. So this bell is going to end up being a completely full Mark IV. So instead, I think I'm actually just going to make it a Mark V, just so I don't have to worry about it. 480 divided by 3 is 160 on each one of these. So I'm just going to go up and over with the lift and do all Mark III. So now we've got 320 coming out of here. This 160 is going to get split in half. There's 80, and there's 80, 40, and 40, 20, 20, 10, 10, and here is 5, and for the last 5, we're going to go ahead and use a lift there, and it's going to plug into that merger. This right here is 40, so we're going to split that in half. There's 20, and there's 20. So now I've got the 20 plus the 5. Here's the 25 that I needed to loop back to the first merger. And now we are pretty much done. This has 320 plus 80. Here's my 400 plus 20. There's the 420 quartz that I need to make the power shards. And here's the 35 that is, for now, just going to go into a sink. Maybe I'll have a use for it in the future. That little, probably not. But it was either do that or bring in just a crazy decimal point. And I thought it would just be easier to make a little bit more, do a little bit of load balancing, and then just sink it. Now we can move on to the first set of time crystals. And the way I think I want to lay this out is to have 2 sets of 2 of the particle accelerators. So probably all the way back like that, and then yeah, we'll just give this a start. I may have to move things around. And then I'll have another set of 2 facing the opposite direction. Yeah, I think I'll have to bring these in a little bit more. Or maybe I'll just extend this part. But I'll have 2 of the particle accelerators on each side. And if we do the oil-based diamonds, each one of these is only going to be overclocked to 150%. They'll take in half of a full pipe, so 300 each, and I'll get 60 diamonds. And then on this side is where I'll put all of the converters. And I only need 8 in total, so I think I'm just going to manually place them. And we're just going to do 2 rows of 4. And if we load these up with power shards and completely overclock it, each one will intake half of the diamonds, and I'll get 15 time crystals. Because I think it'll look cool, I am just going to keep things as simple as possible. And I'm not going to group up any of the diamonds. So for each one of these, I am just going to bring out its own belt. Is it going to take a lot longer than all being Mark 1 belts? It sure is. But once the factory is up and running, I think it's going to look really cool. And to me, that makes it worth it. So I'm probably going to straighten things out, line these up a little bit better, but this is the idea. Each one of these will output a belt. It'll be a completely full Mark 1 belt of diamonds. And then on the input side, I just need 1 junction, and then these are definitely going to have to be Mark 2 pipes. And then from here, I just need it connected to the oil extractors. So I might spin these around, but just need to get them from there to there. And this way I can keep the pipes pretty short. I think I'll only need 1 pump, and it might even only need to be a Mark 1. Now, things are spaced out a little bit better in my opinion. All of the time crystals are getting grouped up together, and they're just getting merged right here. And then I will take them to, well, they'll be going up to the very top floor. Which is not this one. This is the second to last floor. This floor is going to be making the sand fluctuators and the ionized fuel, which means it'll probably have some storage up here too. I've got a good amount of space on this floor, so I think I'm going to try to space out the machines a little bit. And so instead of using my blueprints, I'm just going to go ahead and manually place these smelters. I'll give them all their own foundation. There's 8 smelters. Load balancing these will be real easy. There we go. Just need some belts. We can set the recipe, and I believe these are all completely overclocked because this is taking in 600 ore and turning it into 600 ingots. And then I will do the same thing on this side, and we're going to get them all merged up together. Means the final point will be right there. All of these iron ingots are going to go straight into 3 constructors. These constructors are all going to be doing the iron pipe recipe. Overclocked to 200%, they'll intake 200 iron ingots and give me 50 steel pipes each. for a total of 150. And then on this side, I'm actually going to work a little bit backwards just so we get the spacing nice and even. I think we can place the first two constructors right here. Nice and lined up. The machines are, maybe I'll redo those. So I need a total of 4 constructors. But the thing with these is one smelter can feed both constructors. So I want to get these spaced out just right. These will be doing the copper ingots. I need 125 divided by 2. 62.5 for each one. Let's get that copper finish for all of these. These are going to be taking those copper ingots and turning them into wire. 250 wire across 4 machines. That's 62.5. And just need to make sure that these belts are marked too. And that'll make all of my steel pipes and my wire. All of the steel pipes and all of the wire are going to get combined into 2 manufacturers. Use 2 of those blueprints, and then I only need 3 splitters. Delete the top one on each of these. Set these for the SAM fluctuators. And these are going to be fully overclocked, so each one will produce 25, 125 wire, 75 steel pipes, and then I'm just going to need to bring in the reanimated SAM. I think it's easiest just to turn the SAM into reanimated SAM at the spot, because then you just need to transport 1/4 of the amount of materials. If each one of the wire constructors is outputting 62.5, I don't actually need to merge these any farther. What I can do is just take this one and plug it straight into there, and this one into here. With the steel pipe, since they're coming out of 3 constructors, it is still going to be easiest just to group up all 3 of them. And then the steel pipes can plug into this top one. We can delete the bottom one. And then this one is going to be where all of my reanimated SAM comes from, and that is just going to go right above all the rest of these. And it'll get plugged in over here. That is the bulk of this floor. But in this back section here, we've got just a couple machines to place. And I mean just a couple. This actually only needs 3 machines. I need 1 refinery, and then I need 2 packagers. And I'm going to line these both up with the fluid input and outputs. Let's start with the refinery. And for that, we need the MAM. If we come down to sulfur, there's only 2 things. I could probably pretty easily do this one, but for now, we're just going to do this one. It'll use one of my hard drives, 100 of those precious power shards, but after today, I'll finally have unlimited. Oh, it's going to feel good. And I've got tons of rocket fuel.
Ionized fuel unlocked. The origin story of this extremely efficient type of fuel was so fascinating it resulted into a new joke. I will tell the most popular version. A cow, power slug, and rocket scientist walk into a bar. The rocket scientist wants a milkshake, and so transportation was forever changed. Any historical inaccuracies have been removed by the FicsitCam Department of Historical Reinterpretation.
I love it. And that is all I needed for now. I can come in here and I've got my ionized fuel, which needs rocket fuel and power shards. Power shards is one of the inputs. I can't just click one. It'll put it in there instead of putting it down here like I want. Yep, I can't. Oh, I have to drag each one. Okay. Well, I actually only need 2. There we go. This is going to produce 80 ionized fuel. I need 80 rocket fuel and the 5 power shards. That's what I need this to take care of. I'm going to put one of my small storage and dimensional depots down here. And this is where I'll bring down my 5 power shards. And then I'll set up a smart splitter right in front. And if they're coming in from the side, that means any is going to be to the right, and then overflow is going to be straightforward. So once this all fills up, then the rest of this is going to get kicked on. Maybe I'll use a lift, or it'll just go on a little journey all the way over to the refinery. Because this is going to need the rocket fuel, and I don't know, this might come from down below. This is going to take the packaged rocket fuel and unpackage it. The refinery needs 80, which means I need 40 packaged rocket fuel. Now it's going to give me an output of 40 empty fluid tanks, which is important. Those will plug into there, and then I'll need a pipe from there to there. I'll make that a lot smoother. This will take the rocket fuel and the power shards and give me 80 ionized fuel and then some compacted coal. For the compacted coal, I am just going to sink it. I do not have a use for it now, and honestly, I probably won't. So these will just get sunk. The 80 ionized fuel is going to go into this packager, and then I am going to package it. You could actually power quite a few fuel generators with it, but it would kind of be a drop in the bucket for what I'm producing, so don't really want to deal with that. However, this is the best fuel for the jetpack, so I am pretty excited to be able to use it. And hey look, at 100%, it has all the right numbers. It'll intake the 80 ionized fuel, 40 empty canisters. Well, that's pretty convenient because now I can take these 40 that it's unpackaging, and then they can just plug straight into here. So any rocket fuel that gets unpackaged, it'll get turned into ionized fuel, and then I'll already have the canisters, and then it can just get repackaged. I don't need to bring in any more aluminum. This is fantastic. And then with these, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put a dimensional depot over here, and then a smart splitter, so that when these plug into here, I can have the main output go forward into the depot. And then eventually this will fill up because of course it will. I just won't use that much. And that will be grouped up with the compacted coal, and those will head off into the sink. And then now that I think about it, I'm going to need to do the same thing for this. This will run at 100% efficiency as long as I don't use any power shards. As soon as I take power shards out of my dimensional depot, it's going to refill, which means then this line is all of a sudden just not going to have any until this backs up again, which means that the rocket fuel won't get used all the time necessarily. And so this is also going to have to get grouped up with all of this and sent to the sink whenever it overflows. Let me knock out this basic belt work and rearrange this and make the pipes look a little bit nicer. All right. Now the belt work is all in, the machines are moved around to more appropriate spots, and everything's color coordinated. The only thing I took out and I still need to replace is the storage for the power shards. Just because I feel like it's going to be easier to figure out where they're going to be able to drop down from once we actually build out this floor. And this is where the shape of the tower is finally going to change, because this is going to need a lot of space, and actually I think this may even need to come out even farther. For now, let's just add that. If I need more, I'll add it, or if it's too much, I can cut it down. It's going to give the factory an interesting shape because this floor sticks out a bit, and then we'll kind of come back in, and then it'll go back out. Could be a fun design to work around. I could have made this tower skinnier and just made it taller and taller, but I've got tons of space, so it's just a lot easier if I can just fit a whole bunch of these machines on the same floor. I'm going to make the remaining diamonds and time crystals on this floor. Both the alien power matrix and the synthetic power shards need excited photonic matter, and they both produce dark matter residue as a byproduct. I'm going to be using the dark matter trap like I mentioned because I just want to make the most amount as I can. With this amount of dark matter residue, that comes to 264 dark matter crystals. And I only need 70 of them for the synthetic power shards. So for now, I'll just be sinking those extra 194. So I think with this floor, I'm going to start on this side and kind of work my way that way. Up first, cloudy diamonds. Here is my center point of the floor, so if I'm not working from one side or the other, I think it's easier to work from the middle. And then I'll just work my way to the edges. I think 3 foundations should be plenty of space to do all the belt work. This is going to require quite a few belts because, well, let's actually set the first recipe. Using the cloudy diamonds recipe, throw some power shards in there. Thankfully, I was just right out of range. It was distracting though. Alright, where were we? 164 diamonds across 4 machines, 41 for each one. I think they're usually spaced out about 3 meters apart, and then that way one of the inputs lines up really nicely with either the line or the half of the foundations. And if we take a look, each one is going to need 984 limestone, so basically 1 full belt on its own. At some point I'm going to need to do a little bit of load balancing, and each one is just going to get its own Mark 6 belt, and then 492 coal. So at least for the coal, I'll be able to split between 2, and I won't need to bring in quite as many belts. But once I bring them up here, I'll figure that out. For every particle accelerator, I need 2 converters, and so I'm just going to put them side by side, lined up with the middle of the particle accelerator. I just need 1 splitter in front of them. These are making 41 diamonds. That means these need to intake half of that, and then they're going to turn it into half of that into time crystals. So what I can do is 41 divided by 4. Each one will make 10.25. 20.5 is half of 41. And now we can just copy and paste these. This will produce the missing 82 time crystals. These are going to go slightly out of order. Next, I want to do all the quantum encoders. I need 3 for the power shards and 2 for the alien power matrix. So with 5 in total, I'm going to get these spaced out just enough. The first 3 are going to be making the synthetic power shards. 35 across 3 machines, 11 2/3. And for the last ones, I'm going to need to unlock the recipe first, but let's go ahead and place all the machines. And to deal with all the dark matter residue, I just need 2 particle accelerators. In total, I have 660 dark matter residue, so that means each one of these needs to take care of 330. So one way I can do that is 330 divided by the default of 150, multiplied by 100 for the percentage, 220%, 132 for each one, and there's the 330 I was looking for. And then last but not least, I need 2 more converters. So I am going to place one on this side and another one on this side. Now, because I have 5 of these, I think for the excited photonic matter at least, it'll be easier just to do it split between the 2 recipes. So this will do it for the alien power matrix, which needs 240. And then that will get split in between these 2. But for the power shards, these ones are going to need a little bit more. This one needs to output 420. And then that will get split between these 3. Okay, so as far as belt work, that's all super simple. I'll take care of that later. This is going to get all grouped together. Out of here, I've got 82 time crystals. From down below, I'll have 120. I need to split it. 70 need to go to the power shards. The other 132 will go to the final step of making the dark matter crystals. So I think it'll be easiest to work with the 82 and just split off the 12. And then that leaves me with 70 to go right here. And then the other 12 will group up with the 120. And then that'll go over to there. So here's the diagram. Couldn't reduce it too much more, but we can divide it by 2 to make things a little bit easier. So we'll start with our merger, and then 5 splitters in a row. This side will take care of the loop back. So I just need 1 merger right here. On this side, we start with the second splitter. And then we have a merger here, a merger here, and I think I messed up my spacing, and I think I want this a little bit farther in. And actually, I am going to rearrange these mergers. So this merger, I'm going to have it face inward, and then this merger, I'm going to have this also face down. And the very last one is actually where everything is going to come out. This right here is going to be my 70. So it'd be nice if this had an easy way to plug into these 3. Alright, so now we just multiply all these numbers by 2. So here's 82. We're going to loop back 14, so that's 96. 48 and 48 plugs into the side of that merger. And then we're basically just dividing it in half a bunch of times. Except for at the very end. This one, we're using all 3 outputs. So 2 of them are going to go into this merger, and 1 of them is going to come over to here. And here's the 14 that loops back to the first merger. So the only thing now is I need to use this output right here. Now all I need to do is go out 4 meters. These usually work best if they're connecting to a belt. And we'll just make a little stubby here. And here is my 12, and that's going to connect with the 120 from down below and feed into those particle accelerators. Now for the last bit of load balancing. Each one of these machines is outputting 132, and 70 of them need to loop back into the power shards. So for this one, I think it'll be easiest just to work with the output of one machine instead of combining them. And since this converter doesn't have any inputs, it's just making the excited photonic matter, I don't have to worry about taking up this space. And I'm just going to work this way since I need the 70 to go back that way. And then I'll take the remainder, it'll connect with that one, and then those will go downstairs. For this one, we'll start with the merger. And as you can see by the diagram, this one had to get a little bit more interesting than most of mine, where I just split it in half over and over again. So to make sure I have enough space, and because, let's be honest, I have plenty, I'm just going to do a 2-meter gap instead of my normal 1 meter in between all of the splitters and mergers. So we do the merger, and then 4 splitters in a row. Next to the second splitter, we're going to place another splitter on either side. Nope, splitter on the right, merger on the left. Probably should have given myself just a tad more space, but just need one last merger. Guess I might have to move this converter just a little bit, but we'll worry about that in a second. On this side, we'll go with a merger right here, and that is going to face to the right. And then that is going to lead to this one over here. And we have our last 2 mergers. All right, let's connect some belts. So we just need to multiply everything by 2. There's 132. We're going to loop back 30. So here is 162, 54, 54, and 54. Oops, nope, that one is going to that merger. Yeah, I spun that merger the wrong way. The merger needs to be facing down. Because now we split that 54 3 ways and we've got 18, 18, and 18. But then we need to split this one all 3 ways. So this is where it's going to get a little bit chaotic. And I think the easiest way is if I lock it in place and then I nudge it 4 meters to the left and then 4 meters up, place one there. And then I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Now I can grab my lift and they'll easily connect into these 2. Delete these. There's 6. Now I'm going to do the same thing just on those 2 spots. And there's another 6. The 6 goes into that merger plus the 54. There's 60. This one had 18, so here's 6, 6, and another 6. And then the last one, here's a bunch of 2s. This is 66 plus 4. Here is my 70. So this is then going to go down there and plug into those quantum encoders. This one I need to merge up with that one. So didn't quite lay things out quite how I wanted. So I may need to move this over just a little bit. But there is also one last piece. Got to make sure that the 30 loops back to the merger. And so for that, we'll just do another short lift. So it's a little bit more chaotic than the normal ones. But hey, it's going to look pretty cool with a bunch of dark matter crystals running across it. Most of the rest of this belt and pipe work is going to be pretty straightforward. I do need to do a little jumping ahead, but here's the problem. I only have 45 power shards left here. Even if I take those out, there's 63. And I need 100 to unlock the alien power matrix. So instead of taking the normal portal trip, which would be way quicker, I'm going to bust out the good old object scanner and use my rocket fuel for the last time and pick up some last power slugs on my way back to the home base. And I am just going to do one last little slug run to get the rest that I need. Home sweet home. I have enough. I didn't really feel like spending that long hunting slugs, but this is a good time to empty my inventory of all the rest of the things I want to sloop and free up more space in my dimensional depot. And time to clean out some trash. Oh, it's going to be so nice to have these completely automated. But it is fun seeing just a solid line of them. Oh, now I've got my 100. And I think the other thing I needed was singularity cells, and I just happen to have a couple extra in my dimensional depot already. Actually, don't even remember when I put them in there, but I'm glad I did. That's right, SAM fluctuators. Give me all the power.
Alien Power Matrix recipe unlocked. These disposable synthetic mimic artifacts increase power augmenter output by further stabilizing the summer sloop's connection to its energy harvesting location.
You grow shrines and engrave silent organs incompatible with the tapestry.
It is a beginning, far from an ending, a step in between.
Harmony.
That's fun. I may have taken the slow way over here, but I'm definitely going to take the quick way back. So now I'm going to use my teleporter, going to go back to the blue crater, finish the simple belt and pipe work, and I'll see you there. I've made a little bit of progress. It's still missing quite a few lifts. There's 1 or 2 lifts in place already, but most of the items still need to make their way up here. Like, for example, all of this limestone and coal. I need just shy of 2,000 coal and 4,000 limestone. I've got the excited photonic matter in here. Because it behaves like a gas, it's easiest to have this come in at the very top and then just drop down. Now, this is the one section that got a little bit interesting, and I'll be honest, I am not crazy about it. I've got quite a bit of other things to work on, and so that gives me plenty of time to think about if this is really the way I want to do it. So here's the problem. The alien power matrix machines output 120 dark matter residue each. So between these two, that's 240. The synthetic power shards output 140 each. And so with all 3 of them, that's 420. So they're not even numbers, and the way I've set up my particle accelerators are that each one is going to deal with half, and I really can't make it so that this deals with 420 and the other one deals with 240. The most they can deal with is 375. So here's the way I went about it. There's 3 of these machines for the power shards, 2 of them for the alien power matrix. So I thought it'd be easiest basically just to split one of them in half, which is this one right here. And then if I combine one machine over here with one machine here and then half of one of these, that would give me the right amount. Now, I'm not crazy about doing it this way, but I've got a valve here, and I guess we'll probably want a valve here. And in theory, this 140 will get split in half, so 70 goes that way and 70 goes that way. This is one of those things that, on paper, this should work out fine. And hey, if they were belts, it would. But I don't really like doing this with valves in the first place, and I think the gas and the valves just almost never play nice, so don't be too surprised if we end up revisiting the pipework here. For the power shards, I needed to split it to have 30 go over to the alien power matrix, and then 5 of them are going to go down below. To do that split is pretty simple. I have all 3 machines group up, so I've got 35 going into here. Since 35 is 7 times 5, so we're just going to do an 8-way split, and then we loop back that last one. So we go from 35 to 40, split that in half, 20 and 20, 10 and 10, 5 and 5. So now my 5 is going to drop down below, and then the 30 comes over here and gets load balanced between the 2 machines. So these power shards drop down below, and they plug into the smart splitter. So it is going to take a very long time at only 5 per minute to fill up the dimensional depot and the small storage container. And in reality, I probably don't even need the storage container. Just having the dimensional depot is probably enough. I mean, I don't really have that many more machines to build, but that also just feels kind of weird, and I just want a storage container of power shards. So it's probably going to take a very long time until this ever kicks in. But once this does fill up, the overflow will head on this way. It'll make its way around and into the refinery, and it'll make my ionized fuel, and then we'll package it, and it'll go into its storage. All of the basic stuff is done. Like I said, I still need to figure out things going from floor to floor. Now that I have this done though, I kind of want to start working on bringing the resources here. I think it'll be easier to bring all the resources nearby, because unlike a lot of my factories where a lot of the raw resources plug in at the very bottom and then they get turned into other stuff and make their way up, I need a whole bunch of it to make its way over to that corner. So it turns out when I look at the map and I turn on resources, there isn't actually as much limestone around here as I thought there was. I've got a normal node down there and then a pure node all the way up here. The copper and the iron, super close, don't need to worry about those. The quartz is going to be coming from over here. I'm not going to be using the pure. I think just outside of my radar range is a normal node. So I'm going to be grabbing that one. And then this gives me an impure and an impure. So that's half of the SAM that I need. The coal can thankfully all come from right here. So the last things I need are a whole bunch of limestone and 600 SAM. And for that, I think I'm going to head over to the grassy fields because I haven't grabbed any of these resources. So there's definitely enough limestone, even if it takes a whole bunch of normal and impure nodes to do it. And because this isn't my first time playing the game, I do happen to already know there's a SAM node underneath that arch. The famous arch in the grassy fields. And there's the Manta. Oh, if we just head straight down here, we've got a normal node. And hey, there's 3 limestone just right here, which is pretty close. And then a 4th one. I think this will be the spot. I think, well, the arch is just in a really convenient place right here. I'm just going to put my train station just right over this hole. Because then it'd be really easy to have trains be able to branch off this way. I can come to the train station and then they can head back. I do want a bigger train station where I'll actually put my portal and that'll be kind of the hub of the area. But since I need so many resources, I think this train is going to actually be a little bit bigger than my normal trains because I don't really want to split it up into 2 train stations. I'd rather have one that's, 5 or 6 cars instead of having 2 different ones. So I think it'll just be easier to have this one be completely separate. And then later on when I come back to build like a real factory out here, then I'll build the main train station, which will probably be on the other side of the grassy fields anyways. It'd be nice if I don't have to transport all of these resources that far. And here's the start to the grassy fields SAM pickup, which is actually going to have way more limestone than it is SAM. I've gotten it started, although I am going to need to add just a few more onto here. I'm going to need to bring in at least 4, possibly even 5 things of limestone. And even though the trip isn't too far, we're just going, right next to those towers. I think that's still going to be a little bit too far to try to do 1200 per minute. Most of these nodes are normal anyway, so it'll be pretty easy just to pair up one node with one freight car. And then under here, I'm still going to have just enough room to be able to get any belts to where they need to go. And I'll do the same thing I did here for the limestone. Actually, I think I've even got enough room up here if I place some foundations. So for the limestone, it's just going to stretch all the way from down here. We've got the one normal node, overclocked to output 600. That goes into 2 completely overclocked constructors, so they'll each take 300 SAM and give me 75 reanimated SAM. This is half of the reanimated SAM I need. I do love my infinite lifts. These are all going to do limestone. So now the next is just going to grab the limestone, bring those over, and then I just need to connect the rail lines. So instead of doing a normal kind of T-junction like I normally do, I'm going to do this one a little bit different. This should be roughly the middle point, and I'm going to bring this out to here. And then instead of bringing both lines, I'm actually only going to bring the incoming line. So I do want a train to be able to come from either direction, just in case. I think it'd be better safe than sorry. And then from here, since it's going to be just a single track, I'll just go ahead and place this blueprint. And now, since I have right-hand drive, I'm going to connect from this side over to here. And then from this side over to here. And now, like any other intersection, we want them to be pass signals going into the intersection. So it would just be these 2. And then block signals on all of the exits. That one's going to blink until I finally get that connected. So from here, it'll end up dropping down to the appropriate height. And then on the way back, this is going to snake up this way and connect over here. And it'll just create one really big loop. Like I said, once I place a real train station, I think that one's going to go over here. So I shouldn't have to worry about the train lines getting in the way of each other. Here's my expansion out to the grassy fields. Made some progress. I grabbed these 3 limestone nodes. And that one. And then they all plug in right underneath the train station because there's just enough space. And then I also grabbed the next closest normal limestone node, which is coming from just over there. So thankfully, still really close. For the design, I kept it pretty simple. I went with the roll-up gates because they're just tall enough for the trains to go through. I'm missing some pillars there. There we go, that looks better. So just using some big concrete pillars, then the frame walls. And then I didn't really feel like enclosing the entire roof, so kind of gave it a mixture of the fix-it roofs and the frame foundations. And if we come in from the other side, and we make a right, we've got just some stairs that'll take you down here. Here's the storage container buffer for the reanimated SAM, and then that goes into its freight platform. All of the limestone that is coming from that side are all coming right along the roof, and then plugging into their storage container, and then going into their appropriate freight platforms. And then we've got the last 2. Thankfully, there is plenty of room down here to work with. I could have added an elevator to get me all the way down to the SAM, but I figured I'm never going to go down there once I turned on, so just the ladder is fine. I've mentioned it before, and a couple people have helpfully suggested it in comments. The different pillars will just snap to the bottom of the rail lines, and so in certain areas you can give yourself just a really nice, just extra kind of foundation to it. So even though I prefer using my supports and then just leaving a lot of the rail open, there are spots where it just looked a little bit funny, and so I just snapped a whole bunch of these, and I would just get it so they just barely kind of clip together, and then I would just zoop it straight down. I don't like to use it everywhere, but in certain places, it gives it a really nice look. Now with the train lines, I decided I wanted to try to keep them closer to the ground so that they're just not so elevated. So I decided to change up how I was going to merge on and off of the main rail line. The things from this train station are only ever going to go to the blue crater, which means that on this side, I could keep it really simple because the trains only need to connect to this side. So I just kind of branched it off. I kept it going straight for just a little bit, and then I brought it down to where I wanted. And then it just curves around. And this is the outgoing track. For the incoming trains, that I still wanted to be able to come from either side. And so I did a similar thing where it just kind of branches off to the side, and then we ramp down. And then it merges up with the other side. So a train could come from either direction, and it'll be able to make its way down, and this way I was able to keep it nice and close to the ground for a lot longer. There's one last thing I need to do before I can turn this on, and that is set up the unload balancers in the blue crater. If we take a look inside the train station at the blue crater, I don't exactly have a lot of space. The train station that was my personal train isn't quite big enough. I only have 3, and I'm gonna need 5 or 6. So that means even if I were to extend this, unless I was gonna try to fit it lengthwise, that's just not gonna fit inside here. So I think that means time to go onto the roof. I don't think I'll be able to fit 2 train stations up here, so I think I'm just gonna let this one just take up the whole roof basically. I may end up moving it around, but my thinking is we'll have the train here, then we'll have the freight platforms facing the outside there. We'll just place 6 for now. Well, at least that fits. And since I've got right-hand drive, that means I need to figure out a way to get from here to there, and hopefully make this not look too bad. And then we'll figure out a way to go from here to here. And then it's going to need to go out this way and then curve kind of in and go there. Does not like the curve that I made. But so I'm going to clean that up, and obviously I want to make it look good and hopefully make it functional. And then I'll switch all of these to unload. And then thankfully They're all really easy numbers to work with. They're all going to empty into industrial storage containers. For pretty much all of these, I can just place one splitter in the front. The limestone are all going to be 600, so that's a 500 line. And then I place a merger in the back. And I take a Mark 1 and a Mark 2. That will send 180 back into the storage container, leaving me with my 600. And then the reanimated SAM is even easier, because then I just need a Mark 3 built. I need 150, and this has 270, so now I just take a Mark 2. That'll take 120 back, leaving me with my 150. And what I'm most likely going to do is have all of those lines come out through here. And then this is going to be the path. We're going to go this way, and then once we find a good spot, it'll head on over to the factory. Let me figure out how I want to arrange this train station and get the lines just right, and I'll show you what it looks like. Welcome back. I've got a new train station, and as you can see, there's a little train. This took a bit of trial and error, and I was trying to think about how I wanted to do everything. Originally, I took the train line, and it was a much straighter shot, just almost straight into the train station. But then I realized that I actually need this train station to do one more thing. Although I could have used one of the other train stations down below for this, it would be easy just to have it stop at this train station. That little guy goes and picks up my 30 superposition oscillators that I need. We'll take a quick trip over to the Rocky Desert and I'll show you that, but that was just some quick load balancing and put that on a train. So if I have two trains and the smaller one stops and then the bigger one comes right afterwards, if I didn't have this longer section of track, then that train would block that intersection and none of these other trains would be able to make it down below. Here's the limestone train now. And so this limestone train doesn't even pick up the reanimated SAM. That smaller train goes out to the Rocky Desert and then picks up the SAM and then heads over here and drops off both. This one just does the limestone. With that many freight cars, I figured it would be easiest just to have the two locomotives so that it's not slowing down at all. And if I have that other one picking up the superposition oscillators, one freight car can handle both. The reanimated SAM is only 1.5 stacks per minute, and the superposition oscillators at 30, it's actually 0.6 stacks. Either way, that one freight car has plenty of time. Now everything is syncing just right outside the train station, so if we head down below, I can show you all of my load balancers. So thankfully they don't take up much space, so I was able to just kind of fit them in wherever I was able to. So these ones are all doing the 600s for all of the limestone, and then I think the last ones are squeezed in over here. So one more for there, and then with this one, it has a smart splitter back here. And that'll split the superposition oscillators there, the reanimated SAM there. And doing both 30 and 150, super easy. Most of the limestone is getting grouped together, so I have full 1200 belts, but since I have one left over, I figured I might as well use a sushi belt for this one. Let's go ahead and go upstairs. Let's take the shortcut to the Rocky Desert and I'll show you the superposition oscillators. Good old superposition oscillator tower is working away. And in the past, there was a sink right up here, and that's where they were all sinking. But now they head right over here, all the way to the very back, down here, and this is where I was able to fit the load balancer. So like the rest of them around here, I made it a blueprint because it was just going to be easier to squeeze it in because I'm clearly running out of space. Yeah, definitely something to keep note of. I need more space in my logistics floors. Like all the rest of these, I just make the diagram ahead of time in excalidraw.com. It's just a drawing tool essentially, but it lets me save the same shapes. And that way all of the mergers and splitters are the same size and shape. And then I just draw the lines in between them and work out the math as I go. Having the visual aid really helps. And I will try to make sure that I save both the diagram and any of these blueprints to my Google Drive. This right here has my 30 superposition oscillators per minute. I think if it was a full 60 belt and we were splitting it in half, it would have no problem reading 30. But because it's a belt of 84 that we're load balancing down to 30, it's still going to go from 29 to 31. As long as it averages out to 30, I'm okay with it. I sure do love these shortcuts though. It is just so much faster getting across the map like this. The other thing I took care of was all of the reanimated SAM. So I needed to use 2 of the nearby impure nodes, and so one of them is just coming from right over here. And thankfully it's really not too far, so just a couple belts and lifts, and it's just coming from right over here. Since it's just an impure node, it only needs 1 constructor. The other reanimated SAM, which I haven't turned on yet, is going to be coming from this node. And I bet you can probably guess what this means. It's down in a cave below, and I'm just clipping the lift through the ceiling. To get to that cave, you just need to go straight back past the nitrogen. Once you drop down, you're going to see a whole bunch of the stinky rocks right here, and go through this cave. Once you pop out, there will most likely be a bunch of little spiders. But right in the middle, you've got the 1 impure SAM node. So again, it just needs the 1 constructor, and then that is just going to go straight up to the ceiling here, where I've got a foundation place so that I can use the infinite lift tricks on either side. And then I just threw a beam on the back of the lift to give it a little bit of support and a place for me to run the power. I'm not going to bother spending too much time decorating it. Once it gets turned on, I'm not coming back. And just past that SAM node is a limestone node, so I'm going to grab this one. And then just over here, we've got our coal nodes. All 3 of these are normal nodes. That's 1800 right there. But I need just shy of 2000. This is a Mark III miner, but thankfully it's not completely overclocked, and I'm only using the 400 out of the possible 600. So that's pretty easy to do. I can just overclock this to 600, set up a splitter, and then I'll just need a merger, and then I can split off 200, and then I can have 400 continue to feed this power plant. And then one of these normal nodes will just get underclocked that ever so slight amount. So instead of 600, it'll be 560 something. I'll get those grouped up and the rest of these nodes, and I'm going to send them all to the train station. Once the coal is in the train station, then I'll do my little bit of rebalancing. Instead of having the load balancer out there, I'll just put the basic 2-to-2 balancer down there, so that way I can have 2 completely even belts, and then eventually they'll make their way over to the factory. I've got 2 normal nodes right here. Thankfully, I just need 1 of them. And then I'm also going to grab this copper node. It's an impure, but I only need 125, so that's a pretty good use for an impure node. Let me get to work on building all of these belt highways, and I'll show you how it turns out. There are quite a few new belts. Originally, I was going to add the copper to the highway like I was doing with all the rest of them, but there ended up being a really nice amount. I think there's 7, and so they pretty evenly fit across 2 foundations, and I'm still able to add kind of a little barrier that fits pretty nicely, I think. And so the copper just goes on a little journey all on its own, just around whatever these are. And that's how that makes it into the factory. And if you're wondering, of course, I just made this a blueprint. It's just using some inverted ramps, and then I just nudged the shelf beam just kind of into the right spot. And some big concrete pillars down here for the supports, and then I was just able to just zoop those down. And then I'll probably replace these with that blueprint as well, just so it kind of all looks the same and fits together. For now, everything that's coming through the train station is just sinking right outside. And the one thing you may have noticed is my train station actually got ever so slightly shorter. And so did that train. Well, silly me, I knew that I was going to need to use the limestone node that was coming from all the way over here. So I did that. But when I actually went to go do it, I made a realization, just using the big frame pillars to run across this gap. But it did have a little bit of a journey to go on. It's coming from way back here. and it is on a Mark 6 belt, and that's because this is a pure node, and I forgot that it was a pure node. I talked about it in the map. I knew it was a pure node, but in my mind it was a normal node, and then that meant that I needed to grab one more normal node from the grassy fields. But turns out, since that train was running so well, I just left all of those overclocked and kept all of those at the full 600s. And then I just made this one the one that was slightly underclocked. In the grassy fields, I decided to just delete one of the train stations. Welcome back, train. And then the node that was the farthest, that was coming from right over here, I just deleted that whole one. So I could have made the train station a little bit shorter, but I just really didn't feel like redoing all of that. Instead, there's just some empty room in the back, and hey, if I ever needed it, I could use the space. I'm probably not going to. But that's how I adjusted for the amount of limestone that I needed. Now, I've got all of the limestone I need. You may remember I mentioned that the quartz was coming from this little purple forest, and it is right down here. I'm currently using this impure node for, I don't remember what exactly. Probably crystal oscillators, making radio control units or something. Sure, let's just go with that. And then there's still a pure node available over here if I ever need it. But I only needed 585, so a normal node will do. It just ramps up, but right under the other belt, and then up this hill. Once we get to here, we just use a lift to get all the way up this cliff. I figured it would be easiest just to join up with the reanimated Sam. So I just upgraded this belt and these lifts, and then they head on down into the train station. And then I just use a smart splitter down there to split those onto the appropriate belts. The other resource that I need that I almost completely forgot about, the packaged rocket fuel. But that's coming from right over here, so let me show you. Unfortunately, things got a little cramped down here, but what I'm doing is actually pretty basic. This machine is spitting out 150 packaged rocket fuel per minute. That immediately goes into a splitter, so we've got 50, 50, and 50. That 50 goes into a merger, and we just do a 5-way split. That way I end up with 40 on this line, and then the remaining 110 continues to go on its journey to the storage, and then off into the sink. So it was really cramped, and getting it to all fit was a little tricky, but you know, just had to rearrange the same layout that you see me do a dozen different times to it's basically a 15-way split. But made it fit, and there's no clipping. And that splits off the 40 packaged rocket fuel that I need. I think that's pretty much it for all of the resources I needed to bring over here. Normally, it would be time for me to start doing all of my decorations and running power throughout the factory. But I've been thinking. I am just not confident with how I've set up these pipes. And sure, I could just test it and see if it works, but I'm not crazy about it, and I think I just want to change it. Sometimes you just have to not be afraid to just rip something up and redo it. So all of this, I am just going to redo. And that also means that all of this, it's also got to go. Alright, so how do I want to redo it? Well, we're actually going to do 3 machines instead of 2. So let's get the middle one lined up right in the middle. That looks about right. Yeah, it looks good to me. And then I think we'll just put the other 2. What did I say? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, the inputs line up nicely. Alright, so with placing 3 particle accelerators instead of just the 2, that gives me a little bit more flexibility. Because now what I can have this one do is only deal with these 2. These each output 120, so this one is just going to deal with the 240. 240 divided by 150 times 100. There's the 240, so this one needs 48 time crystals, and it'll make 96 dark matter crystals per minute. Now these 2 are going to deal with these 3. because I can combine these three into one pipe. Each one outputs 140, so in total I've got 420. So each one needs to do 210. There's the 210. Each one of these needs 42. Now I can do the pipe work very similarly. I think I'll have to redo some of this. But this way we can have just this one pipe go over to here, and then I'll split it between these two. And then that can feed into each one of these. And I just feel way more confident about having it laid out this way. Does mean I still need to do a little bit more load balancing, whereas before I was able to just take this amount and put it into one splitter because they were both using an equal amount. But now I need 42, 42, and what is this, 48? Thankfully, this isn't going to be too bad because these two are the same amount. So I just need to split off 84 and send that into that splitter. So 84 and 48 is what I need to split this off to. And so here is my handy diagram to do that. We just need to take my 132 and put it into a splitter. And then that's going to go into a merger. And then 3 more splitters. Well, I might want to move this over a little bit. Alright, so we're going to need to move this merger back here. But for this, what I can do is give everything enough space because we've got it now. 3 mergers on this side, and just 1 single merger on this side. I'm going to have 132 plugging into this splitter, and if I divide that by 3, I get 44 on each of these outputs. 44, plug that into there. And then with this 44, we're going to end up looping back 4, so this is going to end up becoming 48, because that's just an easier number to work with. 24, 24, 12, 12, and then like I said, this one's gonna have 4, 4, and then there's 4. So on this side, I've got my 84 that plugs into that splitter. I've got my 42 and 42, and on this side, I've got my 48, and that is gonna head on its way to the far particle accelerator. So I definitely need to go through and clean up this belt and pipe work, and this I feel much more confident about. And now this actually ends up being even easier because this machine outputs 84 and I need to plug in 70 to that part right here so it can feed the 70 that the quantum encoders need. And even though 14 over 84 doesn't look like a great number, you can reduce it down to 1/6. And well, that's just real easy to load balance. For that, we just need 2 splitters and a merger. Because if we take 84 and then we can split it in half, and then with that half, we just split it into thirds. And this one is going to go along and meet up with these ones. And that will be the 194 or 5 that I'm just going to send down into the basement and sink for now. But eventually, they'll get put on a train and head off to a different factory. I'm really happy with the change because I think all in all, it's actually a much more simple system. And in my opinion, simple usually means more reliable. Besides cleaning up this new belt and pipe work that I have done, the only other thing that I need to do is figure out how I'm going to take these belts and bring them to the appropriate floor. The reanimated SAM needs to plug into there. The limestone and the coal needs to make it to the very top floor. But I don't really have that many sushi belts, so for the most part, it's just plugging things into where they need to go. I've got the rest of that busy work, and then I need to run power throughout the whole factory. And then it's spending way too much time decorating this thing. The save is currently at 477 hours and 55 minutes. So I'll see you in a few hours. Welcome back to the new Alien Power Matrix and Power Shard factory. The save is currently at 484 hours and 48 minutes. Let's go over the farthest parts and we'll work our way back into the factory. Here's all of the coal. I'm splitting off the 200 that I need from the one that I was already using. Here we have 2 different amounts on the belts. But we can follow these belts all the way back to the train station, meeting up with the other limestone and the reanimated sand. The coal comes into the train station and then just goes into a simple 2-to-2 load balancer. I have 2 unequal amounts going in, 2 equal amounts going out. I reshuffled a couple things around. Mainly, the sushi belt changed from the limestone to the quartz. Now out here we've got the 2 equal belts of coal, 2 belts of 1200 limestone, the quartz and reanimated sand are on a belt, and then the iron ore is in the very middle. That is coming from right here. It was easiest just to send it into the train station and then have this show up on the same belt highway as everything else. The copper is on and running, and just like everything else, I've got the sinks nice and close, so I can just delete those and the smart splitters when I'm ready to turn everything on. For the 1 limestone node that's coming from way over there, that one is already turned on, but since I left it as a lift on the outside, it was easiest just to put the sink on the inside for that one. The only thing I do still kind of want to fix up is the train station. I would like to put at least some walls and some sort of roof on top of it instead of just leaving the train station plopped right on top. But for right now, it's just going to stay like this. Having the different length floors was actually a really fun challenge to work around, and I'm really glad I did it that way. I enclosed the water extractors, but they're already powered on and completely backed up. And then with this part, I just used some ramps to kind of bring that part in. And then for this section, I just kind of wanted to leave it open. But then once we go to the next section, this part is actually closed off and there's nothing in there. It's just all glass. But it ended up giving the look I was going for, and I'm pretty happy. You really can't see the pattern from any real distance, but all of the billboards do have this fun pattern going across it. And then I just use some of the frame walls just to kind of switch things up a little bit and make it so that the signs weren't just so bright. Although I didn't do it for all the way around. I just used the frame foundations on one side, and then in the very front, I left them open. And then I did the same thing on the other side. Because I have the quantum encoders and they pretty much run right down the middle. Originally, I had this pattern all the way across, and instead of using the frame foundations, I just had the concrete go all the way across. But that meant that this quantum encoder just shot its beam just straight through the foundations, and I just wasn't crazy about it. But I thought the frame foundations, well, who cares if the light shines straight through those? On the inside of each of the floors, I'm just using the coated concrete as a walkway all the way around. The good old beam trick to make laying all the power easy. We've already got the excited photonic matter on and all backed up. I went ahead and loaded each of the Power Shard quantum encoders of the dark matter crystals. This way, it has enough to get going as soon as the time crystals and the quartz crystals show up. Then it will start producing the dark matter residue. Once the dark matter residue starts showing up, then these will start producing the dark matter crystals, and then the 70 will end up going back here, and it'll complete the loop. But it's just much easier to be able to kickstart them with a full stack. The extra dark matter crystals are going to head along this way, and then they are going to merge up with the alien power matrix. Then those head along this belt and head straight down. Past this floor, which really hasn't changed too much. Same with this floor, not too much has changed, it's just got walls and windows now. But once it goes down into this floor, then it's just going to head out. Right under the hypertube, all the way back to the train station. As far as the entrances go, I decided to give myself 2. So we've got the ground level, and we can head up the stairs. And as soon as we enter here, we've got a belt that goes right over our head, but hey, you don't run into it. And this is the quartz processing. And we have an elevator to take us up just to the next floor. Once we're at this floor, we've got the hypertube, which will take you back to the train station. And then the rest of the factory. So from in here, in this corner, this will take you to any of the other floors. Let's head back down to the ground floor. Let's get this thing started. I try to make things as easy as possible for the startup process. What I'm going to do is select all of the smart splitters and all of the sinks and just delete them all at once. I will probably have to pull out a few stacks of either limestone or coal somewhere, but I don't mind. But before I do that, I need to manually turn on all of these particle accelerators. I gave myself a little balcony here, so if we come straight through here, we've just got a nice little overview of the 2 oil extractors, and I just needed 2 Mark 1 pumps. I turned all of that on ahead of time, and the way I did it was I turned off all of the machines, I turned on the oil extractors, and that filled up all of the pipes. But as soon as I turn on both of these machines, that's almost instantly going to suck up 50 for each of these machines. So all of a sudden, even though that oil extractor was completely backed up, 100 is just going to go missing. And all of a sudden, then there will be some free space in the pipe. It probably would not be the end of the world, and it would all work out just fine. But just for my peace of mind, and because it's really not hard to do, once the pipe was filled up, I would just turn on one machine, let it get completely full, and then just turn it off. And that's why you see it's partially through its cycle already. But now everything is completely backed up. The machines are both completely full, all of the pipe is completely full, and so is the oil extractor. If I wasn't trying to use the full 600 throughput of this pipe, it probably wouldn't make that much of a difference. But when you're trying to get the most out of it, I think this is worth it. So let's go ahead and get our stopwatch ready, and let's see how long this takes. Now that those are going, I can select all of the smart splitters and the sinks and get these deleted. Now that I've got all this selected, let's send in all the rest of the materials. Looks like we're reading all the numbers we're supposed to. So there is the 10 alien power matrix per minute, the 194 extra dark matter crystals, and we can go down below and see the 5 power shards per minute heading into my storage. And there they go, a whopping 5 per minute. Not a crazy amount, but it's way more than I'm going to consistently use. Now if we take a look at my dimensional storage, yeah, there's a few. In a matter of no time, this will be completely full. It will take quite a while to fill up that storage container though. So I am just kind of curious, what if I just take 50 of these? And what if we see what this new fuel looks like now? Let's go ahead and just dump those in there. So honestly, if it's 1 to 16, this is going to create so much that it's probably more than I'm going to use for the rest of the save to begin with. Oh, and here they are. It is a cool looking canister. So I know it's ionized fuel, but it's interesting that the packaging is actually ionized rocket fuel. Which, I mean, makes sense. It uses the rocket fuel. Very cool. So now, in my dimensional storage, we can unpin that one. We can upgrade to the package ionized fuel. I guess we also need to make sure that we switch this over. Let's take it for a spin. Oh, wow. Yeah, this is pretty crazy. You get a lot of verticality, and yeah, I can just stay in the air forever, it seems. Very cool. I definitely should have set up a temporary setup to make this sooner. I know someone suggested it, and I really should have done it. Maybe I will in the next one. Maybe I'll unlock that a bit sooner next time. But hey, better late than never, right? Figure I should go outside and actually test it, and Wow. Yeah, this fuel is pretty crazy. Holy cow. Now that belt should be headed all the way over to the train station. The finished products have made their way to the train station, and for now, they're just being sunk. The dark matter crystals will continue to get sunk for a while, but sinking these alien power matrix makes no sense. They're way more valuable to actually use. So I'm going to split those off with a smart splitter, and I think this is going to be a good use for my old train station. I'm going to repurpose one of these empty platforms to a freight platform, and I'm going to put all 10 alien power matrix on there. And then I'm going to take my shortcut back to the hub. Because if I just jump off the edge, could take the elevator, but this is so much faster. And we head down here. I can finally use this train station for something else because I really don't need it for a personal train. So now it's going to bring in the alien power matrix. Then I will add them to all of these other lifts, and these are going to go all the way up to this floor, and I'm going to try to figure out a way to make this look good. But we need to split it off, so 5 of them go to that one, and 5 of them go to this one. I have unfortunately ran out of space down here, so since I've got plenty of verticality, I just added another quick little floor here. So when the train drops off the alien power matrix, they just feed into the industrial storage container. I just need to connect one last belt to get this thing all started, but I wanted to make sure that there was enough in the storage container that it would last long enough for the train to go complete another trip. So it's actually been a little while. Because that train is picking up such little amount, I have it set to wait at this train station for 20 minutes before it'll go pick up some more. And even then, the freight car is still pretty empty. And here we go, just dropping off some more. Perfect timing. So we've just got the real simple balancer to go from 60 down to 10. So we split it in half and then split that into thirds. Alright, this is 100% worth it just for the animation. I think this is my new favorite machine in the game. I forgot just how cool this is. That is just awesome. Obviously the question on everybody's mind, what does the power graph look like though? Oh, look at that. I guess I should have looked at it before, but thankfully I wrote it down. My power grid before was at 426,600. Now we're at the 568,800. Still got to get the timing just right, so they'll probably stutter once or twice. But going from the normal 10% to 30%, oh, I think each one was doing like 35,000, and now they're doing 106. By making 10 of these alien power matrix per minute, I've increased my power grid by 142,200 megawatts. That is going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for being here. And a special thank you to everyone that likes, comments, and hypes the videos. It really does help. I have increased my power grid by another 142,000 megawatts. I now have almost 570,000 megawatts available to me. And currently, I'm only using about half. I also have 5 power shards per minute headed to storage, meaning I'll never have to pick up another slug, for this save at least. Up until now, it's felt like there's always a million things left to do before I beat the game. All of a sudden, there's actually only a couple things left to do. I already have the 1000 nuclear pasta. I just need the other 3 space elevator parts. I'll be starting with the biochemical sculptors and the AI expansion servers. So look forward to that. And thanks for watching.